It's great to be here today. This is Michael Williams, and I'm actually here with a friend of mine, Mr. Mo Riddiford from Germany. And it's very interesting how we met. I'll just tell you a little bit about Mo, and then we've got some questions for each other that we're going to share. But the name of your company, Mo, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but it's Be in English.
Mm-hmm.
And you are a confidence in communications coach consultant, and you specialize in the international market. And we've talked a little bit about this idea of what is authentic confidence and identity. I know that we're going to get into that. And so we've had some great conversations thus far, and we wanted to carry this into the online market and have a good conversation today online and to share with our prospective audiences. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk with you and to get to know a little bit more about you and what you do and how you might actually be able to serve some of the people that I serve.
Thank you. Michael, it's a real pleasure because I saw your videos and I was very impressed. My name's Mo Riddiford, as Michael just said, and the quality of how you spoke and your care and your awareness of the internal factors regarding people who struggle to communicate under pressure, particular issues around stuttering, it was clear we ticked so many boxes together. And I found it very interesting that Michael has brought a lot of his own experience into his work. And this is exactly the same for me, that working with the clients has emerged some principles that are not very common. And they're principles that are different from what we think. We think in our respective fields that it's about the external production, but if you don't have the engine working right in the car, that means our mind and our intention, well, the car won't go very fast, if this is a fair analogy. So I'm going to explore if my assumptions, I'm talking about my impression of Michael's work, and we're going to explore that today, and I'd like to dig into that. And certainly Michael's my role model for what my video presence online should be. I know exactly where my North Star is. That's where I'm heading towards.
Thank you, Mo. Thank you. Yeah, one of the things that we'll touch on maybe towards the end is that I have been very excited to take my experience in building a business completely online using video and begin to share that with other coaches who want to be free to work from anywhere and want to have a greater presence online using video. So I'll just talk about that a little later, but if it's okay with you, Mo, I just wanted to go ahead and ask you a few questions about your business and what you do. Is that all right?
Yeah, I'd love it. Great.
So could you briefly describe what you do in this world of communication, speech? What do you do?
Yeah. So what I found was the people that I work with are mostly people whose first language is not English. Mm-hmm. Although I have just started this week helping an American to begin with his German. And to give you an example, because we're having an English conversation, this is a man who is a raw beginner in German. And in just 1 week, we've gone from 5 minutes only in German to 14 minutes only in German to 19 minutes conversation only in German. No vocabulary, no grammar. A full interactive back and forth conversation. So this is working well away from what my normal client experiences. My normal client has learnt English in school and has mislearnt that speaking in a second language or speaking in any language involves a list of words and grammar. And this is an important removal of false ideas so that we can return to the wonderful talent that we all share of learning our first language.
Right, right.
So we did that. So my work is easy. Everybody did it. I have proof. I just need to show it to my client.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned a key phrase there, and that is kind of how we learned our first language. Because believe it or not, I often use this phrase when I'm explaining to people how they can, in a sense, replace their stuttering speech with smooth, fluent speech. I use that exact phrase, so we can kind of get into that. But that's very, very interesting.
Yeah, let's roll with it.
Okay.
Yeah. So because in my own work, I've been working backwards. I think I need to mention that I've been meditating myself. For some people, you can call it prayer. That's really no problem, or meditation. And it's going to that still small place within. I'm using certain terminology to broaden the term meditation, but I've been doing that for over 3 decades, for an average of more than an hour a day. And so I bring that own awareness of how my own mind works into the dialogue I have with my clients to help them to identify their own internal processes. Okay. And so out of that, I've worked out a working model of what happened in early childhood that is still present today. And I'd be very curious what how you see early childhood in relationship to communication under pressure, or stuttering, or anything else.
Yeah. It seems that you go pretty deep with that. I'm gonna just share with you how I see it, but I really would love to hear your perspective and a little bit about your model with regards to that. But what I share with people is that when they learned their first language, they didn't read books because they didn't know how to read. Right?
That's it.
They didn't take a class. They didn't learn vocabulary, and they didn't listen to audience. What they did is through observation, through intense observation of people around them. And they watched, and there was this internal intention or desire for them to communicate.
I'm getting really excited now. This is for the people listening. Why is it so exciting? Because this is a man, we haven't talked in this kind of detail about our work together, and he's just touching all the buttons about what I've found out for myself. And when you see the results with clients, as Michael has the results, as I have the results with clients, and then you meet a colleague and entirely independent in complementary fields, and then you start coming out with the same phrases. It's very reinforcing that we are on the right track. I'm very excited. Please continue.
So by helping people understand, this is really how you learned your first language: observation, having an intention to communicate. You didn't even know what that meant at that time, but you wanted to get something out, right? You wanted to.
Yes.
And so just by watching and then by mimicking, I call it modeling, but mimicking and modeling. And here's the thing, and practicing, right? Again, you didn't know that that's what you were doing, but what you were doing is you were trying over and over and over until you reached the level of automaticity, and until it just became natural and second nature. And that's really about the extent that I go, but I let people know that this is This is a natural process.
Mm.
You can do it. And just like you said, the proof is there because you know how to speak your first language as well as you know how to walk and do a lot of other things. And therefore, you can learn to speak smoothly, fluently, confidently. You can learn a second language using the same process. It's there. It's not a matter of if this will work or I hope this will work for me. No, it already has worked.
Yes.
And it can work again.
Proven.
Yeah.
Proven. If you're listening to this video, it's proven. If you can speak to your mother, it's proven.
Exactly. So share with me now your idea and how you apply it. Yeah.
So, the role we're in, Michael, as you know, is I regard it as a sacred role.
Hmm.
It's a huge privilege to work with people. It's a huge privilege that people come to us and say, I trust you enough to open myself for your assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And we are assistants. We're not, in the end, our client is the driver, is the owner of this process. But through dialogue, like we're doing now, in which we tune into each other, as we're doing also with the people watching this video, we're tuning in to each other. And that's very, very powerful. And what we can do with our experience is see results on the outside, see if somebody hesitates, like I just did, slightly, notice that result, and interpret that result on the outside to say to the client, is this your reality inside yourself?
Mm-hmm.
And we can support the client to say, this is where you appear to be. We can be the mirror to say, this is where you are. Would you like to come with me? Trust me. Take this journey. It's safe for you.
Exactly.
And the person, with our support, chooses to take that journey.
Now, you mentioned earlier, or at least in another short conversation that we had, about the inner work and inner awareness was, I believe, a phrase you use. Could you explain what you mean by inner awareness?
Well, I'll give you a very practical example. Is that in school, many people, there are exceptions in the American context and in the New Zealand context. I'm from New Zealand, where people who don't learn a second language, but many people do, and they see a second language in school as the experience of words and grammar. Words on a whiteboard, grammar in a book. Now, in fact, the most important place in the whole process of communication is in our own heads, in our own internal dialogue, at least in my work. And I want to hear what you say about that, Michael. Now, I can't see inside their head. However, I can, through a small test, I won't go into it now, but it's very quick, to ask somebody to look at an object, and do they come up with a word in their first language or in their second language? And this is an outside symbol, how they respond. Do they say fist, or the German word Faust, when they see my hand after closing their eyes? Now, the person can maybe for the first time recognize if they're translating in relationship to a second language or not. So then they can start a journey of being aware of their own internal process. Now, the internal process for one person, if you say, how are you? And the person will say, I don't know. How are you? I don't know. There are people like this. Another person, if you say, how are you? they will say, do you have 3 days? Because I'm in the process of writing a novel. And when you ask, how are you? What are you thinking about? And the person has 3 days of information to tell you. Okay, so there's a lot of variation internally about our experience. However, and I'm curious if this is your experience, again and again, the same misunderstandings about a second language, in my case, or misunderstandings about communication under pressure, false beliefs, influence what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Is this your experience in your work? What's the importance of false belief?
Yeah. Okay. So let me explain some of the experiences that many of my clients have with regards to performing under pressure, right? Fear of public speaking and not performing as well as they would like, as well as stuttering, and seeing certain situations as being high pressure situations, things as simple as introducing themselves or ordering food or saying their names. So there is a whole internal dialogue going on. And this internal dialogue has been a result of their previous experiences and their beliefs now about their ability to communicate. So what happens is, even if they don't articulate it consciously, and sometimes they do, but there's this idea that people are going to judge me, or people are judging me. They're judging how I speak, or that I hope I don't mess up. I hope I don't get stuck here. And it's that whole internal dialogue about hoping that they don't make a mistake, hoping that they can perform well for other people, and not wanting to mess up or experience the embarrassment that comes along with that. It's that dialogue that actually causes them or allows the stuttering to present itself.
So could we dig into the process of stuttering a little bit? So is that okay?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Or did you want to say more?
No.
Because the way you said it to me sounded like the authority in a conversation is not with each one of us. The authority for the conversation, for the stutterer, in certain moments is stolen from them.
That is
taken away from them, and that they're who they are, their being, I call it the I amness, this very basic feeling, I exist, very, very basic, pre-verbal, is somehow in certain moments of probably trauma, I have a feeling, from childhood, please correct me, and it's taken away and placed in the hands of someone else. Another person's reactions will determine if I lose control of myself and I lose my sense of my confidence to speak. Is that a fair analysis?
That's very, very true for many people. I can't say all, but for many people who struggle with stuttering, yes, it is. Yeah, the authority, is now transferred to someone else. In fact, what you'll find is that often, again, can't say for all, but for some, if not many people who stutter, they don't speak the same in every situation. That is, there are some people with whom and around whom they speak well. Often you'll find people in authority, bosses, supervisors, sometimes people in the drive-through or restaurant, people in authority or people that they don't know can cause stuttering to present itself. Right. People that they're comfortable with, or people that are, for example, children, their speech is fine.
Yes.
So a lot of this has to do with confidence, that's not, having high self-confidence or low doesn't cause stuttering, but it affects our speech. So, yeah, and there is this internal dialogue that's going on about how I'm going to speak and what I want to avoid. What we try to do is quiet that inner dialogue and actually replace it. We replace it temporarily, but really what we want is we want the person to be able to speak without thinking. Just as you walk, as you stand up and you move to the next
Yeah,
room,
yeah,
you
good.
don't think I'm going to walk and I have to. No, you just do it. That's where we want people, is where you're not thinking about the process of speech. You're just speaking as a tool to communicate.
As a tool to communicate, I hear that as your attention is that it's practicing your attention on the person that you want to speak with. Is that correct?
Yes, and that's a big part. That's a big part also of performing under pressure with regards to speech, right? Speaking well. Public speaking is often, and this is a great point, and I'm glad that you brought it up, and this is really the crux of it. If you can focus your attention on serving the other person,
Nice.
serving the other person,
So true.
how can I learn from them? How can I communicate my idea to them? How can I make sure, and you said this as well, make sure that they understand what it is that I'm trying to communicate. So I'm watching them, I'm listening to them.
Yes.
The whole idea is to serve them. What this automatically does is it takes the attention off yourself and how you're performing, and I hope that I don't mess up. That is, if you can shift your attention while you're speaking in public, shift to service, you don't have enough mental energy or horsepower to think about messing up, stuttering, and what they're doing.
Yeah, this is psychological work, and I appreciate the way you're talking. It is psychological work, but it's psychological work with the client's permission and with us being as delicate as we can be to say, would you like me to hear, to give you some kind of feedback or not? But it is, in fact, that attention on someone else is an act of service, and it's an act of love.
That's right.
And it would be interesting for me, I see so many parallels. It's very reinforcing how you're speaking, because in many ways, what would you say? So we talked about the focus on the other person. What would you say enables the person to place their attention on the other person?
That's a good question.
This is a teacher question because I've got an answer.
You know what? I probably should let you answer.
Then it's a politician's response.
I'm sure that I have my own little response to that, but I would actually really love to hear your response to that. Yeah.
All right.
And I'll see if some of the things I was thinking.
Good. Fair enough. So the core element to my work, I've developed an approach called the Be in English approach, with just 3 principles and complete radical de-emphasis on words and grammar. And I need to say that the majority of my clients have already spent years and years of time in school, 5 years, 10 years, learning to speak English, and then being hugely frustrated with the results, and especially under pressure. That instead of staying open and relaxed, they get really narrowed down. And we want to avoid that. You can see the parallels with stuttering. Now, back to the question. So why would we be able to put our attention on someone else if we step into a strange room? If we go to a party and there are a lot of strange faces and we are not naturally, we're a more introverted person. Personally, I love introverted people. Yeah. It's taken me 15 or 20 years to feel like I understand them and to appreciate them because I'm naturally extroverted. Now, if you go into a room and you are an introverted person, it's challenging because you ideally you should have your attention out, focused on the other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very easy to feel self-conscious, to feel aware of yourself, but in the wrong way.
Exactly.
So let's not call it self-conscious. Let's call it self-obsessed. I hope the people listening realize I'm saying this with love, okay? Because we all at different times experience this obsession with ourselves.
Right.
Yeah, we're all the same in that. Now, it's possible to, in times, especially in times of relaxation, especially in times of dialogue with a real professional who knows their stuff, for someone to start to recognize their own deepest identity. What is their deepest identity? Well, let's just take a moment right now, I'm expanding the answer, to realize that right now in this moment, there's a feeling that we all share. And that feeling, very deep, is I exist. It's the one experience that we had that we never didn't have. I exist. And this feeling, when we let ourselves relax and relax and relax, there's still this feeling, I exist. And we can even notice it when we've been asleep and we start to wake up. And there's a moment after being asleep in which there's some moment in which we say, oh, I'm awake. I'm awake means I exist. This is a wonderful moment. And by putting attention on it, we can see this is a very primary, wrong word, primal experience. And we can imagine if we're a small baby that there was a moment when we didn't even know we had a mother. It was just all of us was us.
Mm-hmm.
Mo is the world. Yeah?
Right.
So this experience is still with us. It hasn't gone away. This is something that we can never lose. And by being aware of it, we're at home. It's not saying, I am a stutterer. It's not saying, I'm bad at English or I'm bad at another language. It's just saying, I exist. I am. And this, when it is what I call authentic confidence identity. Long answer.
Very interesting. Now, you kind of did an experiment where you had several conversations with people. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh man, Michael, I have to tell you, even to think about it, my heart, my whole system shivers and is excited by it. Mm-hmm. It means that if I meet somebody and they speak a language that I don't know, which is nearly every language, I speak German, I speak English. After my trip to France recently, I can say I speak French to a limited degree, but German fluently. But now somebody comes and they speak Arabic or Chinese or Japanese. I've done this. And I tell them, sit down with me, talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. If it's not succeeding like I'm a 5-year-old, talk to me like I'm a 2-year-old. And I tune in to that talent that we all have still, to hear something completely unfamiliar and intuit meaning out of what I hear. And so at this point, I've got about 8 or 9 recordings, which at some point you will see on YouTube as clips of me hearing Chinese and copying, mimicking, and that's a term that Michael uses, perfectly mimicking what the other person says as best I can,
Mm-hmm.
and intuiting the meaning out of it and seeing if I can change it a little bit to say I am, you are. And but it requires 200% commitment. Yeah.
And what was the result? You said that you asked them if they felt like they were involved in a real conversation.
Yeah, I check with them always at the end, and because we could say I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I'm just completely, I tune into my own internal confidence. I optimize it, maximize it, this feeling I exist, in so to and then I give all of my attention to the other person.
Mm-hmm.
It's like running a 200-meter sprint or something. It's very intense, and then I give all my attention to the face, the sound, the context, my life experience, and I react, and I use what they've given me, and I feed it back to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is like extreme jazz improvisation
Mm-hmm.
in a second language, you could say. Are there parallels for you, or?
Well, let me just continue with that. And so,
Okay.
and so your purpose for doing that was to demonstrate to people that might see these videos what?
I wanted to show that there are two things in communication.
Mm-hmm.
One is competence,
Mm-hmm.
which is competence means do I know words in this language,
Mm-hmm.
or do I know my subject? Let's say you're a voice coach, and so people get up to give a speech, and they know their field, but that's not enough. They still meet problems. I knew all my stuff, and then I got up to speak, and I could only speak some small part, and I was stuttering and hesitating and blanking out. What happened? More knowledge will not help for these issues.
Mm-hmm.
Once at a certain point, you know your subject, and you know you can always improve, but you know enough. You know you can serve people with your knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's wonderful what Michael's doing, because he's serving people. He's saying it doesn't have, you're going down a dead end. You think, oh, if I just knew more, I'd be able to solve it. And I have a feeling that Michael focuses a lot on our relationship to what we know, our relationship to what we say.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing. Please help me out here.
So
that would be the confidence.
The confidence, right?
That's the confidence.
So there were two things, and one is the competence, which you taught, and then the second one, which you had to display a super high level of, is confidence, because you didn't really know the language.
I have zero competence, but with maximum confidence,
you were still able
to have communication.
Zero
competence, zero understanding of Arabic grammar, nearly zero understanding of any Arabic words.
Yeah. And your confidence, now correct me if I'm wrong, your confidence did not come from so much focusing on yourself and your ability. It came from you 200% being focused on the other person.
Mm.
Right?
It's a little bit more subtle. It's a little bit more subtle, because when we're returning to the question from before, which was, yes, the best communication is that focus on the other person. Mm-hmm. If we're listening, if we're tuning in, then that's beautiful. Mm-hmm. But we need the capacity to do that.
Okay. Yes.
And because you can't say to somebody, okay, focus on the other person, listen to me, when you're so busy with an internal dialogue of incapacity.
Right. Right.
So there needs to be clarity within ourselves. There needs to be alignment, or what I call coherence. I want to communicate with this person, and I'm clear what about potential beliefs that will hold me back. I'm not going to get rid of them. These beliefs may remain with me my whole life. My stuttering identity might stay with us for a long time. Am I wrong, Michael?
I'm glad you brought that up because I
Good.
just did a video talking about how improving your speech has a lot to do with your speaking identity, right? It's not just technique driven, breathe like this, speak like this.
Right. Right.
That's important, right? But I use modeling and mimicking to help a person quickly transform their speaking identity from a person who stutters, meaning I see myself as a stutterer, to someone who's an excellent speaker.
Oh,
It's that transformation
identity. Okay. Okay.
that it allows that person then to stop that negative inner dialogue of I'm going to stutter and I'm going to mess up, to, what is it that I want to communicate and how do I want to communicate? It's just a whole transformation on the inside because the identity has to be changed, not just the technique. The whole identity has to be changed. And that's a process. And a part of it is what you say and think to yourself every day, all throughout the day. That's one part. What you watch and listen to, but also what you have your eyes focused on. And for me, that means focusing on a model, someone that you can almost pretend to speak like. So you take your focus off yourself and you put it on the kind of person and speaker you want to be. This is one of the fastest ways to transform your eye. And quickly, relatively quickly, within a few weeks, you no longer have to focus on the other person, on your model, because you've had so many of your own experiences that you no longer really have to try to feel confident. You become confident. You are confident in your own ability.
So here, I think we're going to see some differences, and perhaps we might find that they're similar. I see the value of finding a model outside of ourselves that we love. So that's an act of love to say, oh, I aspire to be like this person. And then over time, having life experience that I can do this, that I'm not going to stutter, that I'm not going to hesitate or fail. And by the way, let's just add this into the mix. If you stutter in your first language, you will definitely stutter in a second language. Yeah. Your foundation in a second language is so much smaller. So the potential for your production in a second language to fail is so much closer to the surface. You're walking on thin ice. In your first language, you have a whole lifetime of experience. Second language, not. So these issues of confidence are really key. Now, I don't actually use any form of model outside of great communicators or great second language communicators. I return to their own proven success in their first language. And this is why I call it authentic confidence identity, because authentic means if I'm naturally have the speaking power of a famous politician, that's what my potential is. But for many other people, it's less. If I could communicate like Shakespeare, that would be my limit. But authentic just means authentic to you, Michael, from where you came from, your background, your intellect. Same with mine. But whatever it is that produced our level of completion in our first language, I point to that. How did that happen? We did that. Nobody taught us. We didn't have a manual that we read for our first language. So I mirror back to them who they were and who they still are. And that aptitude and potential in themselves. Do you see the difference? We're on the same track, but it's I call it rediscovery of what's been hidden.
Absolutely. And there's a place for that. And I'm sure that could enhance. Give me just a second there.
Sure. Let's enjoy it.
It can be pretty loud. I'm just going to mute. There's an important place at least in my process for that, and that can probably enhance my own work in many ways. That is one of the differences that we have, and that's what makes it rich. The whole thing of stuttering is so intense. It's so ingrained that a combination of things have to be used. And the idea of modeling or mimicking comes from social learning, right? It's really social learning. And in a sense, I think you'll see that as we grow up, a part of how we learn to speak was modeling, right? It was actually looking at, right? And so we are incorporating that in many ways as saying, hey, this is what you did when you learned your first language, right? You model your parents, the people around you. It's proven that this is a way for you to learn a language. It's one of the ways, right? So therefore, you have the innate ability to improve your speech, to learn second languages. I speak more than a little Spanish. I'm not totally fluent. So I totally understand what you're getting at. And I think it's 100% correct. And so we try to get people to tap into their natural ability to change their speech pattern, which the reason that I use these words is because often they think they cannot, that they're stuck, that it's a disease, that this is the way they are.
Yeah, for life.
For life. And it's absolutely not true.
No. Yeah. This is so cool. I think from my side, I guess one question, we've just been in a great flow and I'm really happy about what we've been discussing, is the question of relaxation.
I was just looking at that.
Great.
Yeah, so we'll wrap up on that, I guess.
Yeah, mate, let's do it that way. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So do you want to go first, or did you want me to talk about how important that is to my work?
Would you like to start?
Okay. My clients have told me that this is absolutely critical, right? That one of the things that causes a person to not perform well under pressure, they're giving a presentation at their job or whatever, one of the things that causes them to not perform well is nervousness, anxiety, and so forth and so on. In other words, not being relaxed. And so there are many, many ways to be relaxed. But one of the things that I tell them is that being relaxed is a habit. It's not just a one-time thing where you say, okay, I want to be relaxed. Let me do some breathing exercises. That does work. There are lots of things that work. But I see being relaxed as a habit. It's a habitual way of thinking. We live in a world that's very fast, right? We got to do it now. We got to. And so often people are just in a habit of being anxious, of being stressed. And once they can learn to slow down and to be centered and to be in the moment, to pause, to take their time, you to be proactive. You're in control of the flow of the conversation. You don't allow other people to drive you and pull you and make you hurry and rush, right? If that's not going to be helpful for you. So by helping them take more control over their own space, their own time, their own speech, their speed, and to move slower, to respond a little slower, to actually speak slower, to breathe deeper, right? To breathe deeper while they're speaking, they become more relaxed. It's a habit and not just an event. Yes, you can do some things in the moment. So I try to help them see that being relaxed in the various high pressure moments is a result of you creating a habit of being relaxed all along.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
some of the very specific things that I've already mentioned is slowing down, pausing, responding when you want to respond, meditating, praying, right? Learning to breathe more, breathe deeper. Those are some of the things that we talk about. And there are some other things, but
fantastic. And anyway, just as a general principle, anyway, these days that people can find ways to take time for themselves in a conscious way, not time for themselves to watch a TV series. That's a distraction. That's not time for themselves. Any way somebody can do that will have benefits for themselves and for the world. And there are many, many different ways. I would never want to say this is the one way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm personally, it's a lifelong love affair with my own meditation practice. It just goes deeper and deeper and richer and richer. It's the first thing that I choose to do in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I encourage people to, yes, to have a practice that supports ways for them to calm themselves, a practice that supports ways to stay with themselves, to be with themselves, is hugely valuable. And you can't do it in a moment of pressure. It won't work. You need momentum. You need to have decided as a long-term thing, this is good for my life. I need to learn to do this in the easy times, and then I have it available for me in the hard times. So I fully agree with you there. I enjoy, and I encourage my clients to enjoy the moments when it all falls apart. Yeah. What is my relationship when, let's say, stuttering happens? Can I learn to love myself? We cannot know the future. We can do the best practice possible, and we can still experience times when it falls apart. With my German, I could talk to Angela Merkel, the head of the country. I've given speeches in German, but regularly circumstances occur and my German is weak. It's rocky. I can hear it coming out. It's just not good. Instead of tensing up to try and make it better, much better, this is the reality. And if I find myself stuttering, or whatever, well, that's happening. It's a reality. But we can still have a much bigger relationship to it, which can be supported a lot by someone like Michael, who communicates a presence. So it's an excellent moment to stop, since my son has just turned up. This is Jonah.
Hello, Jonah.
We need to surrender to reality, whatever it is. This is the reality called my son.
Beautiful. Very good. Well,
yes.
Well, this has been really good. We'll need to definitely do this again and focus on some other
I'd
things
like it.
that we believe can serve our audiences. So if someone wanted to get in touch with
Yes.
you, you're going to go ahead and leave us your contact information.
Yes.
And if they want to get in touch with you, what is it, or why is it that someone would want to get in touch with you? What is it that they would need to make them?
Somebody is in their own country,
Mhm.
and you've spent time in India, or many other countries around the world. I want for the one international conversation, which is an English language conversation, the one genuinely international one. I want many more voices than native speakers like Michael and me. I'm from New Zealand, Michael's from America. In order, we have global problems and I want global solutions. My name, you see there, is, if you Google it, I'll come up first. So that's very easy. Effectiveinenglish.com is my website, but Be in English will also find me very quickly. And what I deliver for anybody who's had a few years of English in school is what I call bulletproof authentic confidence. It means no matter what happens, no matter the pressured situation, I can continue to communicate in English. So people in the space of 12 hours online can reach that guaranteed result.
Okay.
Yeah. And for you, Michael?
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, a couple of things. If you struggle with stuttering, doesn't matter how severe or how minor, doesn't matter how long. I have people who are 69 years old, they've been around the world, they've spent tens of thousands of dollars, and I've been able to, now they're doing Toastmasters speeches. I have people that are just doing incredible things after having stuttered for decades. This really works. So and fear of public speaking. If a fear of public speaking that's been limiting your career, that's something that I can do. And then the latest thing that I'm doing, which is just a natural progression, is I've built my entire business online using video. My first big client
I'm his biggest fan. He's great.
was a wealthy Indian guy who found me on YouTube, hired me on 2 occasions, flew me to India to stay with them for a month to treat their son, all because of video presence. Right. So what I'm doing now is helping other coaches through proven methods and techniques that I know work. I've been doing it for years, to help them become more present online using video and have a complete online business. I can work from anywhere, and I have worked from anywhere. I've worked from India. I've worked from different parts of the country. That's what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Okay.
Fantastic. So a nice way to finish, since you were in India, is the Indian way of showing respect.
Yes.
So I enjoyed that very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mo. Okay, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.